everybody. It is April 4th. Is that right, baby?
Yeah.
It is April 4th, and I am 2 days out from my second chemo, and I am 4 days out from getting a feeding tube surgically placed into my stomach. In fact, give me a moment to sit up straight, or that thing's gonna start hurting again.
You got it 6 days ago.
Did I get it 6 days ago? The feeding tube?
You got it on the 30th, yeah.
Oh God, it shouldn't still be hurting. Okay, so 6 days ago, I got my feeding tube, and the second round of chemo hits a lot harder than the first. As you can see, the radiation has stricken a lot of hair from my face, and I got that rockabilly look going by default now, so that's fun. And the feeding tube has been, the second week of chemo, or the second round of chemo makes every second of every day vigorously nauseating. It's taken me about 3 hours to drink an 800 milliliter smoothie this morning. That's fun. Interesting, I got the feeding tube because I was losing weight at a rate of about 5 pounds a week. And so that I could supplement that weight, I got a feeding tube so I could eat my 600 calorie pies a day and all that, and then supplement with this tube that was supposed to take 40 minutes to drop 250 calories into my stomach directly. But the tube is slow, like 3 hours slow, and so it's actually been harder to put down calories. And the first 2 days after the tube, I didn't eat because I was in the hospital and not allowed to. And so I feel crazy. I feel a little malnourished. This isn't a negative video. It's positive. Things are still going well. But I am in the throes of it now, and, I want to be real about what that is. My wife has been incredibly supportive and helpful with my tube and with everything. Ooh, burping and hiccups do not make the surgical site feel well. A fun thing that my chemo does is give you burps and hiccups chronically. As you can see, I'm still trying my best to keep good spirits. I also just cried for like 15 minutes before this video, so it's an up and down thing, everything about head and neck cancer treatment at this degree is extremely traumatic. You can look it up. It's like up there with traumatic cancer treatments. And hard to deal with. It's hard to know what's going on. A lot of the stuff that's happening is very internal, so there aren't a lot of ways to see what's going on. So a lot of it is just trust the medicine, trust your faith, and do some testing after the stuff's done. Same thing with the intestinal or stomach tube. It's like once it's in there, if it isn't red and stinky on the outside, then if it hurts, who knows why? And because of the corona situation, UCSF is still letting me go to my appointments. They're not closed down to everybody, but it can be very difficult to get a hold of doctors, and it's nearly impossible to get person-to-person visits unless there's a matter of significant urgency. Or they'll tell you to go to the emergency room, which if you go to an ER right now in San Francisco or any major metropolis, you're running a significant risk of contracting COVID because of, just the number of possible asymptomatic carriers, and it's an ER, and, it's just how it goes. I will say, as a caveat to that UCSF has been doing a really tremendous job of keeping their COVID people separate from other patients and keeping the numbers down and doing their due diligence. And I'm really happy that I'm in their hands as opposed to some of the other hospitals that I've dealt with in my life. But needless to say, the COVID crisis has made what already would have been the hardest, most complicated, difficult, and scary thing that I'd ever do, magnitudes more difficult, complicated, and scary. For me and for my wife. There's layers to this that I'm not even going to go into out of respect for her personal privacy. But if this isn't the hardest thing we ever go through in our life, I don't want to encounter what is. Because it is heavy, and it is stressful, and it's isolation on a profound degree during something that is heavy and stressful. Most people don't like isolation when every flower is blooming in the yard, let alone when they're wilting outside and everyone's scared. It's really hard. But we have to do our best as she and I, and just as a people in this country and in this world, to try to stay positive and hopeful. And that's what I'm doing. Interesting things, matters of note, for those that have been keeping up with the updates of my symptoms and all that. Yeah, that's exactly where I was going. So chemo, of course, the way it works is it basically kills a tremendous amount of the cells in your body in an effort to also kill the cancer cells that may be lingering microscopically, which is statistically very effective. This particular chemo treatment also is meant to increase the effects and intensity of the radiation to remove cancer cells from tumor beds and places that they otherwise might be. One of the things that comes with chemo is a dramatic drop in white blood cells. Of course, these are your soldier cells. They fight off the bad stuff in your body. They are the reason you get a temperature to burn out infections. They are essential to a proper functioning healthy body. Think of a fortress with no soldiers. That's what your body with no white blood cells is. My white blood cell count as of my most recent treatment was borderline too low before the treatment. My absolute neutrophil count was 1.14, which is right around the line where they might boost you with this crazy, like, here's a bunch of white blood cells treatment, or stop treatment for a little bit so you can regenerate some neutrophils. If it goes too low, then you get into like bone marrow transplant land, and that's super not fun. But we're not there yet. But one of the things that comes with a low white blood cell count the day after chemo is your body might catch something. And so last night, in the middle of the afternoon, I started sneezing. And I started having a runny nose, like a madman. Like I went through a box of tissues and almost 2 rolls of toilet paper over the course of about 5 hours. It was nuts. And then this morning I woke up and it was just poof, gone. I don't have that anymore, so that's very good. Because, only about 5% of people who have COVID get sneeze and runny nose as symptoms. But in my condition, in my place, I can't be too careful, and I'm a naturally paranoid dude, and I got a little spooked. So it going away so promptly is an incredibly good sign that it probably was just some stupid thing that got up in my nose, and my body went a little wild with it overnight. So I woke up really happy. on my third day of my second chemo treatment. Sorry. Chemo also makes your brain like real slow, and so does radiation. So as these videos continue, I'll get more and more derpy. But I woke up pretty happy and ready to take the day on and have my smoothie and maybe stand up and walk around a little bit in my room to get some exercise. And then as I was sitting up and talking to my wife, it felt suddenly like someone rammed a piece of rebar through the spot where they put my feeding tube, and it hurt so bad that it made me get lightheaded and start to sweat very suddenly within a matter of seconds. There's a lot of complications that can come with feeding tubes. A lot of them suck really, really bad, and I didn't want it to be any of those. So I got worried, and I got hopeful that it might just be a muscle cramp, because if your muscle cramps while there's a tube stuck through it, it's going to hurt. So I laid down, and over about 10 minutes, the pain started to subside. And I called what doctors were available, which ended up actually just being a dietitian. And the dietitian told me, I guess when they put these things in you, there's these little L hooks, and there's 3 of them, and then there's another thing called a bolus, and those things work together to hold your stomach up against the tube so that the tube doesn't come out and squirt food all over your body on the inside, which would be very bad. If that happens, you need a stomach pump, which is a huge, bad, not fun surgery. What's that?
We don't know that
Yeah, well, I'm not going to need a stomach pump, I'm quite sure. Yeah, and so what might have happened is, because of the position I was sitting in, if I was crunched over, it may have caused that bolus to jab into a part of my guts or poke a nerve cluster or something, and that's what would have caused that. At least that was his presumption. He said if it happens again, that I need to address it with a doctor. So hopefully that doesn't happen again. I'm certainly going to spend the rest of my day laying down or sitting as straight up as like a Victorian schoolgirl balancing books on her head. Yeah, that's a good reference, right? But yeah, that's that's kind of what it's like over here right now. The city's getting quieter and quieter, thankfully. If it's a sunny day and it's 1 o'clock, there's still a seemingly unreasonable amount of people walking around the streets without masks or gloves, but it's in the condition I'm in, it's much better to concern myself with my business than others, and so I'm trying to keep that in mind and stay focused on my positive healing as opposed to judgment of others' behavior. I'm excited to go to my next treatment on Monday and hopefully talk to some doctors, because on the weekends you can't. You talk to physician's assistants, or you talk to on-call doctors who have one very specific specialty that they can't really advise towards other things. It's all very tricky. It's all very interesting, but I am making it. I don't feel like I'm dying. I just feel like there is a whole lot of shit going on in my body at the same time. Radiation makes you sleepy and it makes your tongue hurt, and chemo makes you sleepy and it makes your body feel insane. And for the first week after you receive a chemo treatment, you are like just incredibly nauseous. I mean, you don't even have to do anything. You don't have to move. You can lay flat on your back, and your body's like, hey, don't put any food in me or you might vomit. And so it really de-incentivizes you to eat, but chemo makes it so you need to eat, and that's hard because I have a really fast metabolism. And that's kind of my biggest thing right now, is how am I going to manage that and it's a lot. I know a lot of my videos I go for a more educational, less holy crap this is my life spin on things, but I'm kind of in a holy crap this is my life headspace, and one of the things that's helping me manage that is all the love and kindness from everybody out there in the internet community and my hometown and my sweet town here in California and other towns, and people, and just random people who see my stuff. It's all really great, and it really helps. I'm a pretty socially driven person, and to have so much social uplifting is rather uplifting, and it does help me. And so I wanted to thank everybody for everything. I don't have the wherewithal right now to go send in a message for everybody that said every nice thing.
Thank you for the cards.
And yes, and thank you everybody who sent cards. I love them. Some of them are so sweet and so cute. The one with the dinosaur was the cutest thing I ever seen. I'm gonna put that on my mantelpiece because it's a little diorama and it's adorable. The jokes from relatives' kids are just the cutest things I ever seen. I could go on and on, but it's just great. I love it. It lifted my spirits. A couple of my oldest friends sent me this package full of bows and silly books and just a drawing of some madness that happened at the house we lived at together, and just spirit lifting stuff. And that's really what it needs right now, because this is one of the more extraordinary situations I've ever found myself in, and extraordinary help and uplifting is needed. Yeah, it's just wild. So I guess that's kind of my update. Everything's going okay for the most part. I'm having a harder time in my brain, but I think everybody is these days, because we're all trapped inside buildings trying to figure out how to deal with a world that we don't know what it'll look like in a few months. I just have a couple extra bricks on my back. But yeah, all the donations are helpful. Oh, that's what I should get to before the end of the video. Around May 1st, it looks like we're going to be leaving here. Hiccups. We'll be leaving here. And, sorry about the funny faces, nausea, hiccups, woohoo. We'll be leaving here and heading probably back up to Mendocino, where we have our support and stuff. No, I want to get through it. But we have our support networks and stuff like that. And we had to get rid of our house to be able to afford to be down here. And so, there's costs involved in all that. And of course, part of this is me reaching out, as I did already on Facebook, to everyone up there to say, hey, we're going to be back probably in early May, unless something miraculous happens with an Airbnb down here. We're going to need a really safe, sterile, healthy place to be, where, indoor facilities and toilets, showers, ability to wash dishes and keep everything clean and sterile is really essential, because those first 2 weeks after my last chemo treatment, I'm going to be so profoundly immunocompromised, it's crazy. I know I can count on my community, because my community has come out for me so many times and in so many ways, and I just love all of y'all. And yeah, so that's kind of that. That's my plea, hit the GoFundMe if you're feeling philanthropic, and find a sterile shack in your backyard to put us in for a couple weeks if you got one. I love you all, and yeah, stay safe, stay sane, and stay inside. We're all gonna get through this. Thanks. See you guys.